Anyone there?
Not sure about that.
On Zoom.
PS4.
Right.
Welcome, folks. Yud Beis Tammuz, a good yontiv. 12th day of Tammuz, 97 years ago. The previous Rebbe was released from prison, imprisonment. And for a special class today, we have Rabbi Bresinger in honor of the day. Enjoy.
Okay. Thank you. I can't see anybody, but I imagine people are here. I guess. Okay, so here we go. So it's Yud Beis Tammuz, so it's a Yom Tov today. We say good Yom Tov. And the reasoning is 1927, the Rebbe's father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, was confronted the Soviet Union, confronted the evil arm of the Soviet regime that was dedicated to eliminating Judaism and that sought out, murdered, and massacred and tortured and exiled any Jewish person that they saw was a counter-revolutionary, which was somebody who was trying to promote Judaism. And the Free Rebbe was a leader of that cause and was a target and was imprisoned with the death penalty. And then through different types of intervention, both politically, international political intervention. And what we're going to see today, the point of what we want to do today is to see how there was actual miracles performed and the role of miracles in our lives and the difference between a miracle and a law of nature. So if you had to think of one word to describe, Henry, the difference, one word to describe the difference between laws of nature and a miracle, what one word would you give?
Divine.
Divine. Okay. What?
Exception.
Exception. Okay, so in other words, the difference between a miracle and a law of nature, according to Henry, is one is divine.
I suppose laws of nature are divine too.
Yeah, laws of nature are divine too. So one of the great sages from the 1500s said difference is one word: frequency. Frequency. Laws of nature have a consistency, have a frequency, have a predictability. In truth, when one looks objectively at the different laws of nature, it would be very hard to not believe there's a force behind them. Take a lot of faith to believe there's no God. As a matter of fact, it's through the consistency of the laws of nature that an element of godliness is revealed more than a miracle. So in this mimer, I'll just read the first sentence. We're going to talk a little bit about it, and we have about 15 minutes.
You said through the consistency of the laws of nature, the laws of divineness are revealed. I just
through the consistency of the examining the laws of nature, there is a element of godliness that could be discovered deeper than a miracle.
Okay.
And that's precisely what this mimer is about. This mimer was based on a mimer that the Friedrich Rebbe said just a few years after his liberation. And our Rebbe brought this mimer and then expounded on it. And this is what we're going to do now. So the words inside starts like this. There's a sentence we say in davening all the time. It's from Tehillim. We say in the evening service, we say Hasam nafshenu b'chayim v'lo natan lamot raglenu, which means he put life into my soul and did not allow my feet to falter. Right. So the question that the Frieger asks, and is think about the definition of soul is life. In other words, it's almost like it's the same word. It's a synonym. Soul, life. Without the soul, there is no life. A soul doesn't die. A soul is the life force within us. So when King David is saying, I put my soul in life, the Friedrich Rebbe says, wait a second, that's like a double. What do you mean I put my soul in life? Soul is life. So what's going to be explained is that in order for our feet not to falter, we need an extra dose of life, an extra particular part of our soul needs to be revealed in order that in this world, walking in this world, our feet won't falter. And that's what we really want, right?
Yeah.
We want desperately, I want desperately that I should walk through this day and my feet shouldn't falter. In the work I do with addiction, another word for falter would be slip, right? I don't want to slip. And slip is sobriety lessons in priority. So we all have, an addict or not, they all have stumbling blocks that are going to come through the day. And we pray every morning, please don't protect me from them.
Yeah.
I don't want them. But the fact is that we're being given them all the time. And we have to all, by the way, I think an important, very important, a fundamental principle of Judaism is being aware of the patterns in our life that keep on coming back. That's patterns. They keep on coming back to challenge us emotionally, in marriage, whatever it is, to see the patterns. What? Triggers, to be aware of them. Why? What do you need to be aware of them? Just go through. What do you need to be aware of? Because these triggers we're going to see, it's God talking to us. God is constantly in conversation with me, constant conversation with you. As a matter of fact, at the same time, of course, not only, so it's pretty amazing how we can look at our day as God talking to us. We're talking to God, and it's playing out in real time. So if a person cuts me off, let's say, and forget about what I do, but if a person cuts me off, that's God talking to me. What's God saying there? I don't know. It depends. Maybe God is saying, hey, love you, love what you're doing. Check this out about you. You got a little bit of anger there. Let's talk about it. Boom, trigger. Okay. So there's an additional guarantee that we're not going to falter that we're talking about here. He goes into a long explanation of the difference between the days of creation. He says on the first day of creation, all that there was light. The water covered everything.
Yeah.
The second day of creation, what happened? There was a split. The lower waters went below, and the higher waters went above. So it was a split. And the third day is when land came up, and now we're able to be who we are. Earth sprouted and was fitting place for us to be brought to, Adam and Eve to be brought to, right? So the second day is then, according to what we're saying here, the second day, the split in itself is the source of all splits, is a source of all argument, is a source of all machlokus. And that's where this is connected to Korach and the parsha of Korach, that if you source back who Korach was, and you go trace it back, always tracing it back, what does it come from? Who is he on high? He comes from a very, very lofty place, a place that's similar or grounded in the second day of creation. Machlokus, arguing, fighting for there's different types, right? Hillel and Shammai, they had a machloket. They were always arguing, disagreeing. They were split, but it was for the sake of heaven. The difference with Korach was his argument was not for the sake of heaven. It was for the sake of Korach. So how could such a lofty, high soul that's rooted could come onto this world and do such damage? Well, there's a big difference between my potential and what I can do with it. And that's where Korach is seen as somebody who misused or corrupted or whatever it was. But so with Korach, then, what was his basis of argument? What was his argument? Because it says about Korach that he was a very wise man. So his argument was based on the fact of there's Tzimtzum and there's revelation. There's concealment and there's revelation. What's concealment? Concealment is coming from Gevura, from holding back. And revelation is from expressing fully. Right? Chesed and Gevura. If you think about in the process of creation, the initial behavior was Chesed or Gevura? Which one? Chesed, you'd say, right? Chesed, right? It depends. It always depends. No. Initial process of God, so to speak, taking on the role of creator God chose to hold back, to pull back his presence in order that there should be a void, a space, so to speak, not physical, a space in which now creation can come in. Why does it need a space? Because now the creation can come in and actually think, like you said, that it's fragmented, that there is no God.
Yeah.
Without that holding back, there would have been no room for us at all. Okay, so really the initial action of holding back, Gevura, was the challenge, because now we are going to have that thirst, that yearning to connect to God who's holding back. So the more God holds back, so to speak, the more I yearn and want him. And that's a dynamic that came about in creation. The first day, it was all water. The second day, we said there was a split, higher and lower. And the third day, it was integration. That's why it says Thursday, Kitayv twice. That's the day of days. Tuesday is the great day. I want to stick to Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz, so I'm going to skip ahead of all this. This so we can learn. I'm here Shabbos morning, and we can do this in depth. But for Yud Beis Tammuz is like this: going back to a miracle versus the law of nature. Just tell you a quick story that will help us understand this a little bit. That the Peter Himmelman, who was the son-in-law of Bob Dylan, was studying with Simon Jacobson, a teacher in Crown Heights. And he was very cynical, skeptical. And at one point, he was in Simon Jacobson's house, and he saw there was a picture of the Rebbe on the wall. And Simon didn't say anything, but Peter Himmelman looked at him and says, "I guess you think this guy can fly." Right? So Simon said, "Fly? I'm not sure. But I can tell you, when he walks on the world, when he walks on the ground, he considers it as great as flying." Laws of nature versus miracle. The difference, frequency. Now, what's greater? When God breaks the laws of nature, and there's the splitting of the sea, and there's there's miracles that really break nature, right? That's how we think about miracles. So they're amazing. No. Much greater, in a certain sense, is when God miraculously is creating the world, something from nothing, in a consistent way that we don't see. And yet, through deep contemplation and learning of Chassidus, we can actually begin to realize how everything's a miracle. It's just concealed, but everything's a miracle. That's the greatest. That's one of the goals of the creation of the world. And that's one of the goals of Chassidus, is to see in the natural the godly. There is nothing outside of God. So everything, the fact that my arm is going like this is an action that is being constantly redone, recreated by God himself, but I don't see it. So how does that have to do with Yud Beis Tammuz? We're going to have to close with this. There's a lot of different concepts we covered here today, but we're going to do it like this. When the Frierdiker Rebbe came into prison, he had the attitude of, and he said about it, he's not going to give any credence whatsoever to the tormentors, to the torturers. And he didn't. They came in to tell him at one point, towards the end, they were coming in to tell him that he was going to go free. And they came in, and he would not speak Russian to them. He would only speak Yiddish. And then he came in and they said, "Stand up." And he didn't pay attention. He didn't stand up. And they beat him. And then the other instigator or the other fellow from the Soviet Union government came in and said, "Why are you being why are you so stubborn? They're coming to tell you good news. Why don't you stand up?" And the idea was, there's no them. There's nothing in the world that is counter to godliness. And if I look at it and if I give it credence whatsoever, I'm giving it vitality. I refuse to give it any type of credence based on the idea that all that there is God. So when they came in and there was great miracles, we said he was first going to be executed. After he was going to be executed, he was released to exile. After exile, he was freed completely. And that's today when he was told he's going to go free today. Yeah. And we celebrate. But guess what? There's Yud Beis Tammuz, Yud Gimel Tammuz when he went free. What about Yud Dalet Tammuz, the 14th day of Tammuz? 12th day, he was told he's going free.
Today.
Tomorrow, he actually goes free. What happened the next day? The next day, there was still the Soviet Union. We're talking about 1927.
Yeah.
Stalin wasn't even at his height yet.
Yeah.
There was still the Soviet Union. There was still great oppression. There was still unbelievable challenge and to spreading Judaism.
Yeah.
It's the law. It went back to the laws of nature, or it was never broken. There was no great miracle. The sea split. Everything was happening within the laws of nature, but it was being done in a way where it was exposing how the normal, the day-to-day, the moment by moment, those are miraculous as much as the splitting of the sea or more. Even more, because of the subtlety, because we can find, going back to Korach, we can find that the Gevurah holding back is much deeper in a sense than giving.
Yeah.
So a miracle in that sense is the full expression. Sea splits, God's being revealed, godliness being revealed, but Gevurah holding back. No, that holding back is greater and, so to speak, higher than the giving. And it's up to us. And this is our challenge. And this is our challenge for today. And we'll end with this thought. What does that do with me and you today? So remember, we started off with the pasuk, Asam nafshenu b'chayim v'lo natnan l'moit raglenu. That this pasuk from Tehillim that we say every night in Mariv, that God puts an additional soul into my life in order that my feet will not falter. The Frierdiker Rebbe taught us that from then on, so to speak, the accessibility to this special part within us that's usually concealed, that special soul power is accessible in a way like never before, because how the Frierdiker Rebbe behaved and how he touched on and exposed that part of him that did not, that prevented him, that extra part of the kayak, the extra energy that he was given in those times of being squeezed, being challenged, the Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. It opened up, so to speak, the gates for us to access that same type of strength, spiritual strength that can help us get through the day in the mundane with all that's going on and not falter. Meaning, what does falter mean? Falter, what's a sin? A sin in 3 letters, S-I-N, self-imposed nonsense. It's nonsense because if not to say that it's nonsense, meaning because my head's not on straight. My head's not on straight. If my head was on straight, I wouldn't do the negative, or I wouldn't hold back from the positive. So the idea is, how can I keep my head on straight today? How can I not falter? Well, if the Frierdiker Rebbe was able to access this part of him that had him not falter when it came to the Soviet regime, we can also now, when it comes to our own oppressors, and get through the day, and we can walk this earth without faltering, realizing, and the key is that every step we take is an absolutely extraordinary miracle. And by seeing that, we're given a certain type of power And it takes a lot of work. Doesn't it? It takes a lot of work. But the payoff, you know what the payoff is? Payoff is Mashiach. What's the idea of Mashiach? The idea of Mashiach is the laws of nature. Well, they're not going to be broken. On the contrary, we're going to see step by step, we're going to see godliness in everything. And that ultimately is what the Frierdiker Rebbe, what we are celebrating today, is the very idea that in normalcy exists higher levels of godliness than in miracles. It's real. This is real. When that's truthfully exposed, that's Mashiach. The work will not be intense at all. We'll see as we walk through this world. In fact, the world is being recreated anew every subatomic second, something from nothing. And with that realization, our whole world will change in a normal way. It will change. Because with that consciousness, with that clarity, there won't be, there can't be war, famine, jealousy. Because it's all coming from God and we see it.
Yeah.
L'chaim, a good Yom Tov.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Rabbi.
Beautiful.
Rabbi V.
Only been another half hour.
Yeah, that this morning.